of the General Assembly is called to order. والآن أعطي الكلمة إلى معالي عادل أحمد الجبير.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Adel Ahmed Al-Jubeir, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو والمعالي.
In the name of God, the Merciful, Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you here today. May the peace of God be upon you. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Mr. Miroslav Lajčák on his election to the presidency of the 72nd session of the General Assembly and wish him every success. I would also like to thank Peter Thompson, President of the previous session of the General Assembly, for his efforts throughout the 71st session of the General Assembly. I'm very pleased to address you here today at a time when my country is celebrating its national holiday in looking to its past with pride and working ambitiously for the future. Today, I'm the messenger of a state that has placed people as its top priority and has resolutely set forth on the path of sustainable development by creating opportunities thanks to its fruitful partnerships with friends around the world. Under the leadership of His Majesty, our King, we are contributing to establishing peace and security in the region and in the world. Mr. President, the Israeli-Arab conflict is the most protracted conflict in the modern history of our region. This conflict has led to innumerable tragedies and human suffering. Nothing can justify the continuation of this conflict. Moreover, especially when there is an international consensus on the two-state solution based on internationally recognized resolutions, as well as the Arab Peace Initiative, in order to establish an independent Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital within 1967 borders. What we need more than ever today is international determination to make this solution a concrete reality. Ladies and gentlemen, the Houthi Al-Houthi insurgency in Yemen led by Saleh is something we are facing. We are in our coalition helping the legal government of Yemen to save the Yemeni people and to recover its state in line with the UN Charter. This was not a choice for us in Yemen. It followed sustained political efforts to preserve the safety and stability of Yemen and its territorial integrity as well as its independence. Thus, we reaffirm our full support for the political process in Yemen, and we will stand by the side of the United Nations in its effort and the efforts of its special envoy in order to arrive to a political solution in line with Resolution 2216 through national dialogue. Saudi Arabia is aware of the scope of the humanitarian suffering of our brothers in Yemen following this coup d'etat, and we have spared no effort to come to the help of Yemenis. Indeed, the amount of aid provided by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in recent years has exceeded $8 billion, and we have addressed all sorts of humanitarian, medical assistance, and we have done this through the King Salman Center for Aid. Mr. President, my country is greatly concerned and condemns by the policy of repression and forced displacements carried out by the government of Myanmar against the Rohingya minority, which runs counter to all human rights and humanitarian values and international law. This human tragedy requires urgent response. An end must be put to this in line with the principles on which our organization was founded. At a time when my country is calling to the government of Myanmar to respect its commitments and to protect its populations from discrimination, we continue to provide humanitarian assistance to those affected, namely the Rohingya minorities. Thus, His Majesty has provided $15 million to assist the displaced Rohingyas, in addition to the assistance the Kingdom has provided in hosting more than 500,000 of these refugees. Moreover, His Majesty personally intervened with neighboring states and has also worked with the government of Bangladesh to ensure safe passage for these refugees and has committed to ensuring decent living conditions in the host countries for these refugees. Mr. President, our international community is facing one of its biggest challenges today, one that jeopardizes its security and stability. This is the threat of terrorism, which is striking everywhere throughout the world. In defiance of all human rights and human values, my country will continue steadfastly working to counter extremism and terrorism in all their forms and manifestations. An Arab-Islamic American summit was thus held in May for this purpose, and the summit reaffirmed unequivocally the need to pursue joint efforts to put an end to extremism and terrorism by addressing the sources of financing of terrorism. Mr. President, the crisis in Qatar is jeopardizing our policy of combating terrorism and extremism and cutting off the funding of such terrorism. Since the beginning of the crisis, my country the Syrian crisis, meantime, is entering its sixth year. Hundreds of thousands of victims have already been claimed. Since the start of the crisis, my country has opened its doors to hundreds of thousands of Syrians. Mr. President, the region of the Middle East is experiencing unprecedented tensions and crises which continue unabated. And Iran plays a role in this. The crisis in Qatar is taking place at a time when we continue our firm policy to combat extremism and terrorism, and Doha's practices of providing financial support to terrorism while disseminating violent hate speech is unacceptable. And Qatar has also been providing safe haven to those who have violated the law and must be brought to justice. They are further fueling tensions. The position that has been taken by our four states is to clearly demand that Qatar follow the principles of international law in combating terrorism, including honoring its obligations under the 2013 Riyadh Agreement and the complementary 2014 agreement. These are all legitimate claims. Mr. President, my country's government, in its desire to reaffirm the principles of the Charter of the United Nations, namely protecting the safety and security and peace of peoples around the world, was one of the first countries to call for establishing a weapons of mass destruction and nuclear weapons-free zone in the Middle East. We place a particularly high importance on the SDGs in their three pillars, socioeconomic, environmental, through the 2030 vision for our kingdom to achieve sustainable development focused on people in order to build a more robust economy. Mr. President, my country has always striven to provide support to developing countries, namely through providing ODA in an amount of 0.7% of gross national income. To conclude, I should like to thank those who are helping people everywhere, no matter where they may be, and who work for peace. Thank you.
شؤون الخارجية المملكة العربية السعودية على بيانه